but we've never seen that amount of assets being changed over from a generation to the next. We have a generation that's worked very hard to gather up their assets, and now we are actually seeing the shift of their hard work over the years of gathering that wealth being shifted down to the generations below.
What are some of the pitfalls that families face when they don't plan for this shift?
I think it's a very emotional period when someone passes away, and quite often, there could be illness before that. And when you're trying to plan decisions around wealth, being in an emotional state does not help those conversations around planning about what someone might want with their legacy. So, being able to plan early with less of an emotional tie to it kind of gives you a greater success of having your wishes actually carried out in the way that you plan.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious too, the average age of inheritance seems to have risen. Why do boomers hold off on sharing their assets with their children?
Oh, I have them in my office, so they do share this with me, I think from an in-person basis. Now, younger generations, they're very open about the YOLO lifestyle. So they're very open through Instagram, all the social media platforms about how they're living their best life. But we have to understand that the boomer generation, they've learned to live without. Their money management skills are centered around, being able to talk about needs versus wants. And they've accumulated their wealth from actually giving up a lot of things over the years. So one of the reasons could be maybe a mismatch of what they see are good money habits. If they don't understand why you are spending money now and not saving up for something, they may be reluctant to hand over any funds now. Or they might, you just may not understand where they might actually see the value of transferring funds. Again, that's why the importance of having a conversation about it. The other reason as well is that sometimes they're worried about relationship breakdowns. As we know, the divorce rate in Australia is about 50%. So I guess that's a very real fear. They are afraid that if they give these funds early and a relationship breaks down, that those funds could be lost. So
that's a sad thought. Yeah,
it's a sad thought. But we hear these concerns in our offices, so we kind of know what they're thinking and what's holding them back.
It seems there's also, a bit of a tension between people have a right, obviously, to the money that they have earned and accumulated over their life, and they might want to be successful and financially stable, but then you've got the tension with that and the younger generation going, well, I'm at a time of my life where I've got a mortgage, I'm paying taxes, I've got kids. It's kind of, there's a great need. Can you balance these tensions?
I find open conversation could help, but I don't think we're really trained to have these conversations early and in a manner that maybe feels safe, where it doesn't sound like the younger generation is saying that they are entitled to that money. So I don't think younger people are saying that they're entitled to that money. But, the older generations see that younger generations are really struggling. So I think that acknowledgement is there, but maybe there's a disagreement of how the money should be spent, or maybe if they're unaware that they can actually put protections in place to ensure that that money is protected.
What role do values and habits play in smoothing this inheritance process?
It's a huge, it plays a huge role. So if you know what's important to your parents, for example, something like education, deposits on house, that seems to be a very tangible way to have your legacy extended. So I think understanding the values of your parents and where they see money being spent well, it's very helpful to the conversation. Your own money habits as well have to be not entirely aligned to how they are, but being able to show responsible money habits will help, again, build that confidence with the older generation. But also, they may not feel comfortable telling you that they are concerned that there could be a relationship breakdown. That's why they're not handing over money. So you might bring to them things like, maybe the concept of financial agreements that can protect something like an inheritance being passed through. So bring that to the table and understanding some of the fears that they have goes a long way to help those conversations actually work.
That's really a fear that you hear. That just seems so surprising to me. These older generations are worried their kids will take the money and then they'll never hear from them again.
Yes, but worry sometimes is founded and sometimes it's unfounded. So that's why open conversations can just help that come to the fore. As financial advisors, we're always asking questions, like deeper questions, because usually what someone tells us at face value is not really what's going on. And that would be very similar with that parent-child relationship. It's really maybe to dig in a bit deeper about what your parents' fears are, because I think parents really do want to help their children, but there are things that they're worried about before those funds can be passed on early.
Your main message, if I'm picking it up correctly, obviously is about having the conversation. Yes. What are your top tips for starting this conversation early and making sure it's open and honest?
Well, again, asking them what their fears are and maybe not judging your parents if they're going to tell you what their actual fears are. I think if you know what they're worried about, you're going to be able to then talk about ways that can make them feel safe with them handing money over. So, maybe just give them the space to be able to talk about how they would want their money to be spent. And there are ways that could still benefit children. So even, for example, if they are wanting to spend money on education for your children, you could actually use then money that you would have spent on education on investing. So, I think give parents the space to let them tell you what they're afraid of. And there are things that you can do to help elevate those fears, like financial agreements, making sure that the money is actually safe and invested in a way that means something to them.
Dawn, thank you so much for joining us on Breakfast.
Thank you so much for having me, Meg.